We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Hey English 3800, have you ever read a news article and ever wondered why the style and tone of the writer is the way it is?
Oh yeah, man, of course.
Good.
Most journalists write in their thoughts and opinions into whatever they are writing about instead of reporting on just objective fact. While the tone and style of journalists today seem pretty typical, 40 to 50 years ago it would be seen as bizarre.
Outside Blair House, the president's temporary Washington home, extreme fanatics of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party try to force their way in, guns blazing, to assassinate the President of the United States.
Hunter S. Thompson was the person who revolutionized how journalists think about reporting the news. Before Thompson, it was atypical for the writer of an article to insert their own thoughts and opinion into their reporting. However, the kind of reporting we have today can be seen as a watered-down version of Thompson's writing style coined as gonzo journalism.
Next guest has been called the most accurate and least factual reporter working today.
Gonzo attempts to not report on fact, but fact filtered through the writer as a medium. So instead of a journalist reporting on a new park your city has just built by citing its location, cost to build, and other features, now journalists might write a story about how the new park is a nuisance to residents because of the traffic it draws to the area. Instead of readers being given the information and then interpreting it on their own, now readers are given a particular perspective from the writer. In the case of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the perspective of the story is told from Raoul Duke, Thompson's fictional persona.
You better take care of me, Lord. If you don't, you're gonna have me on your hands.
Duke is on an assignment to report on the Mint 400, a yearly off-road race for the Rolling Stone. Yet, instead of a cut-and-dry story about the Mint 400, the reader gets a story which has much less to do with the actual event and much more to do with the experience of Raoul Duke covering it. What makes Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas interesting is that Thompson's persona is an exaggeration of his own qualities. So the story that Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas represents lies somewhere between fact and fiction, allowing Thompson to make his point in a fictional manner about factual events.
Those of us who had been up all night were in no mood for coffee and donuts. We wanted strong drink. We were, after all, the absolute cream of the national sporting press.
The effect of this style of writing is that readers are able to understand different perspectives they couldn't possibly on their own. In Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas's case, the reader is able to look at the Mint 400 but understand it as something more than only an event. By looking at the story through Duke's perspective, the reader is able to interpret the story as a whole rather than a finite event within a vacuum. By taking the event outside a vacuum, writers are then able to express more complex ideas surrounding a situation that reporting on pure fact cannot do.
Hey! No! I'm innocent! It was Duke! It was Duke!
From the beginning of the book, Hunter writes the iconic lines,
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
This allows the reader to understand that the protagonist is unreliable because of excessive drug use, but also it allows the reader to understand perspective. The story doesn't start with the purpose of Raoul Duke being in Barstow, but subtly explains the story is being told from the perspective of one individual. What makes Fear and Loathing particularly unique is Raoul Duke. Because of his constant drug-addled state, the reader is left to decide whether his perspective is best at describing the message of Thompson's work. Throughout the story, Thompson pushes the message of a loss of the American dream. As readers, we must decide whether the loss comes from Duke's outrageous lifestyle or Duke's lifestyle is a product of the bygone era where the American dream was possible for people. Whether you answer yes or no to the fact Duke's lifestyle is a product of the loss of the American dream. Throughout the story, it is possible to see conflict in Duke and his lawyers' interactions with the residents of Las Vegas. Though the Mint 400 is the reason for Duke being in Las Vegas, the meaning of the story does not revolve around it. Meaning is placed within Duke's interaction with the outside world.
Okay.
Where most stories attempt to convey a message by placing an event as the focal point, Hunter is able to convey meaning by relaying perspective to the reader. The use of perspective can be seen in the book where a whole chapter is left out, and in its place Hunter's editor gives an explanation as to why this is. The editor explains, at this point in the chronology, Dr. Duke seems to have broken down completely. The editor then goes on to explain that Duke was unreachable during this time, and the rest of the chapter will be transcripts from his tape recorder. This is important to note because in this chapter the reader is allowed to understand the merge of fact and fiction if they know anything about why the story was written. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was Hunter's compilation of field notes from his coverage of the Mint 400. He then took the compiled notes and fictionalized them. The editor's note, though in reference to Duke and not Hunter, is actually in direct reference to Hunter, as it was well known he was bad about meeting deadlines. As the story continues, Duke's debauchery spirals more and more out of control until he wakes up from an unknown amount of time being unconscious. Until this point, Duke has unsuccessfully found the American dream in Las Vegas, and this moment in the plot can be taken as a toll the search has had on him. The aftermath of the drug binge can be seen as a statement about searching for something unfindable. In Duke's case, he is searching for the American dream, and the search drives him to destruction.
The general back alley ambience of the suite was so rotten. So incredibly foul. How long had I been lying there? All these signs of violence. What had happened?
And thus the reader is able to understand the significance of Hunter's work doesn't lie in what the story is about. It lies in how the story depicts the event through the eyes of Duke. When reading an article online today, more often than not, you will most likely disagree with at least some part of the article. The important thing to take away from articles today is to realize that they are written from someone's personal perspective. So while you may not agree with the article or parts of the article, the journalist who wrote the article is writing from their reality. As readers, we just have to hope that they aren't as insane as Raoul Duke.
You fellas haven't been, drinking, have you?
No, not me.
Thanks for watching.